good.
Yeah, we're on time.
Yeah.
Right. I think.
And I heard that
we-
you put in good words on the other side in your hump day, so they may get like
Okay,
1,000 more users.
We're live on the YouTubes.
Yeah, and you need to record the session as well, Simon.
I will do that right now.
Yeah. Yes.
Away.
Okay, we're live again. Good. So welcome back, and also already I'm going to say welcome to everyone else who is kind of been kicked off the meeting. So as usual, we're going to start almost same time, yeah, 6:05-ish.
Yeah.
Today we have Roman, yeah. So we're gonna. I'm so excited about this. One thing I haven't seen, like the halo around important personality. I haven't seen a halo like that, like a dash halo. Yeah, that was a good one. Yeah. So
I need one of those.
Yeah. The
I'll
dash
hook you
halo.
guys up. I'll hook you guys up. It's pretty cool. I can change it. It's like a projection. It's like the Batman signal, like the bat signal, but the dash with the Flutter logo in it.
Yeah. So I think I was thinking to use the Mario introduction, tin, 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 because it's a game building thing. But I thought maybe it would be on YouTube, copyright issues, etc. So I didn't use that. But tin, 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 to you, Roman, for talking about game in Flutter. Yeah, very excited to see what you have to share today.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Just wanted to say I'm so happy. This was long time coming. I was so like excited for this moment, for this day. I've been joining your sessions. Yes, I've been even getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning to join some of your sessions. They've all been worthwhile. So thank you so much for. I'm gonna repeat it again. I did it off camera, but I'm gonna do it one more time. All of you guys, whoever's watching, you guys are lucky. You are more than blessed to have an amazing team behind you, helping you in your Flutter journey. This has been an amazing cohort, an amazing Flutter Dev Camp, where you have relied upon many experts that have come before me, and the ones that are present right now supporting you in your Flutter journey. I've seen your creations. It has been amazing. So kudos to all of you for all your creations and for becoming, again, Flutter developers throughout this amazing Flutter Dev Camp. So kudos to all of you and all of your creation. And thank you again for inviting me. A few people saying I wake up at 5 a.m. every Wednesday. Yes, it's been great. So again, guys, thank you so much. So should I start sharing my screen right now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Let's do that. So let me do that. I think we should be good.
There we go.
Great. And let me know. Just give me a thumbs up real quick if you guys can see it.
Yeah. Yeah, we got
Perfect. Awesome. Great. Thank you so much. So so this session is about the Flutter Casual Games Toolkit. My name is Roman. Again, I am a Flutter GDE. I am also, just like you guys, part of a community here in Massachusetts. GDG Lawrence is the community that I lead. I am also a mentor for the Northeast for the GDG program. It's such an amazing and humbling experience to share all of this with you, my knowledge about Flutter. Everywhere I go, I'm really passionate about this. I see a lot of also familiar faces in the audience, so thank you all of you for joining. I'm wondering how we want to do the questions, whether we want to keep it kind of light, and if you guys have any questions in between my slides and the code that I'm going to be showing and the stuff that I'm going to be demoing, you guys can drop your questions and I can answer them as they come. We could do anything, or maybe the team, Simon, Sumit, or Renuka, you guys can flag it to me if you have any questions.
I tell you what we'll do. We've had it before. I feel like people can raise their hand if they're on the Zoom, so you can use the raise hand feature. I don't think people should speak out because obviously you might be in the middle of something. If they want to raise their hand, I think myself, Renuka, or Sumit can pick up a question and bring it into at the appropriate times. Also, we'll have some. We've got the YouTube live stream this time, so for the YouTube audience, if you put your questions in the live chat, I'll relay them back to the Zoom chat, and then we can pick them up when we can.
Great.
But I think
so
answer questions as we go, basically. I think that kind of makes it a bit more interactive.
Perfect, definitely. So can you see the slides right now?
Yep.
Awesome. Perfect. Okay. So again, we're going to be dealing with the Flutter Casual Games Toolkit. Some of you have seen some applications that I've been building in the open, the way that people call it now. So I even have like a live stream where in the past couple of like 12 episodes, I've been building a casual game, but without using the Casual Games Toolkit. So again, I've given you like multiple perspectives and approaches and alternatives on how you can build like cool, fun, interactive Flutter applications. And now is the turn of the Casual Games Toolkit. Again, so let's proceed, and then you will see what this is all about. Great. So again, this toolkit, the games toolkit, you bring your game toolkit, but the toolkit takes care of the rest. So I'm starting right away, just showing you that when I met Renuka at the GDG, the Firebase Summit in New York, she was like, Roman, I want you to come up with a cool game, something simple, a brand new game that we can build for the session. Renuka, I built this game just for you guys. That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm going to be sharing the code in just a minute. I'm going to be dropping the repo for this application. So I'm giving it to you guys so you guys can roll with it. You can learn from it. You can see how I build it completely, again, from me to you as a token of my appreciation. So you will see exactly how I build it. I'm going to be showing some of the code. I will be providing the GitHub repo completely open. You can pull it down and you can see how I tackle it. But now I'm going to go exactly step by step on how I build it using the Casual Games Toolkit. A disclaimer, again, the toolkit doesn't build your game. You have to create the game logic. That's why I'm saying, specifying that you bring your game logic, and the toolkit does the heavy lifting of all the other integrations of all common casual games, modern mobile games, that those integrations that are common in those games out there that you can use to then give an edge to your game so that you don't have to do the heavy lifting. There's a lot of things, a lot of boilerplate, a lot of things that you can just configure, and then you should be good to go. So I'm going to go exactly step by step on what those things are. Great. So some of those integrations that I'm going to be discussing in this session, and I hope we do have enough time, are how to integrate audio using the Casual Games Toolkit template. I'm going to show you in just a minute. Also, we're going to see how to integrate your custom fonts, because you really want your games to have that unique kick and something really unique that differentiates itself from other games. So you want a very, very unique. Icons, the iconography is very important. How you create the icons, how you build all of that, how you integrate it in the application, make it your own. We're also going to be discussing Firebase Crashlytics, which is a free feature from Firebase that you can add to your applications, not just games. You can add it to any application that allows you to monitor your applications in the wild while they are, let's say, in production. You can capture crashes, you can log information, you can even capture usage of your application, in this case, games. And I'm going to show you exactly how to configure it. We're going to be even doing the game services. We're going to be touching on game services, specifically like a wrapper around Game Center and Play Game Services. Game Center is for iOS devices, and Play Game Services is for Android devices. And then there is a great package that encapsulates both of them. This is for like leaderboards, achievements, and those type of features that you add your application to make it more engaging and more engaging for your users. We're also going to be discussing a little bit about settings, how you save settings in your application. And last but not least, we're going to just briefly touch about ads and in-app purchases. If the time permits, I can even go deeper into that, but at least let's see how much we can cover. But pretty much, these are the integrations that the Casual Game Toolkit kind of like encompasses and provides to you, so that then you don't have to reinvent the wheel and you don't have to spend too much time on that, and you just focus on your game's experience, which is what your users are more interested about, like how cool the game is, how engaging it is, and of course using Flutter. What better than using Flutter? The great thing, like I said, you can still build games without it. These are two examples of games that I've been building. The Skipping Frog one, I'm about to finish it. I only have 2 more episodes to go, where I'm going to publish it to both iOS and both iOS and the Play Store from Google, so that you guys can see how the publishing process goes. The other one is also another one that I've been building, not with the Casual Games Toolkits. Again, I'm going to repeat it. The Casual Games Toolkit doesn't build your game. It has only a sample like logic that you can implement. It only provides you with the scaffolds or the hooks so that you can bring those additional features to your games to give it an edge. Again, leaderboards, settings, audio, fonts, again, like I said, in-app purchases and stuff like that. So those are the features that you want to add to your games that are really common to provide more engagement. And even if you want to monetize from your games, you can also add those things. So let's start right away. So the game logic. So this framework supports a bring your own logic. Why? Because you focus on your game's experience on your game, and the casual games toolkit then provides you with all the things around it. Starting from the game logic, like the basic implementation, if you want to tap into the existing logic that is in the games template, in the casual games template, it's using actually the provider as the state management using the provider package. So let me just go right into the code and explain a little bit of what it does. So this is my application. This is running actually on a physical device right now. I have the device right next to me, and I'm gonna just demo real quick what the game entails. So my particular game is a game that I called Whack-A-Ghost. So it's a whack-a-mole type of game where you start tapping on ghosts, but you got to be really quick. So I remember I was just making this game, and I'm like, okay, so let's do something fun, more like Halloween type, because it was around Halloween. So let me show you what the game entails. I have it right here in front of me, and you're gonna see because I'm projecting the screen. So you can just hit play, and then you get like a counter, 3, 2, 1, and then you have to stop. You have to tap on the ghosts. Like right now, start slow. Every tap it gives you like 100 points. Very simple. And again, to be honest, I created this game like in a couple of hours, but I started like adding more features to it, but I'm like, I have to stop it at this point. Then you get a ghost rate, meaning they start popping up like much quicker. You have to be much quicker around tapping on the ghost. You have to tap. You have to keep tapping, and then you do all of that. Oh, okay, so I have to continue tapping. 30 seconds up on the clock. Then you get a time's up. Then now you have a chance to either submit the score that you got, in this case 4,100 for example, or you can just exit the game and start all over. So in this particular case, this game you can do like you can submit the score. If I tap on submit the score, like it will just go and submit the score for me. If you want to check what your score is, you go back, you exit the game, and then you can load the leaderboards. So the leaderboards, I'm going to show you exactly how you can create leaderboards, how you can submit your score. In this particular case, since I got a lower score, I still submitted a lower score. It still keeps the highest one. So I'm going to show you exactly how to create a leaderboard in the case of the Play Game services for Android. I'm going to show you how it's done on the iOS as well. But then if you see there how I was able to submit my score, you can hit back, and then you can start all over in your game. You can take a look at the leaderboards, you can play it again, same thing. All of this, like most of the hooks are already provided to you by the Casual Games Toolkit template. So if you see all the only logic that I added, I'm going to show you in just a minute, is the animation, the tapping of the little ghosts, the little counter. But as far as like submitting the score, adding, for example, like the transitions, that was all part of that. The icons, it already provided some hooks for doing that. I'm going to show you all the other integrations like Crashlytics. So now I'm even logging every time the user is tapping on things, how they're using the application. I'm capturing some of those things. I'm going to go exactly into those aspects as well. Let me go back to the beginning. And if you see right there, so I'm going to start from, just showing you a little bit of the game logic. So let me start with the let's say the template. So the template gives you a very rough, like scaffold of some packages and whatnot, and some folders. So it uses like this folder type of structure. So you have like some components for ads. Let's say if you want to add like, ads and advertisement to your game, and then you want to add those things, you have like a folder called ads. There's a folder that takes care of your app life cycle. If you take a look at that class right there, like it gives you some information on how they take care of like handling the multiple states of your application. You can tap into that. Audio, it already gives you like an audio controller. Like I mentioned, it uses the provider state management package to kind of do like the dependency injection, to do the state management, to control the business logic. So it's all encapsulated for you within the audio controller. You also have some common logic. You have some Crashlytics. Actually, the common, I think I added that one in there. But the great thing about this structure is that it gives you the flexibility that you can add your own things to it. You can modify them. Of course, you can just clone that repo, make it your own, or fork it, whatever. And then you can start making changes on the game. And then you can start building your game from there. So it has a lot of logic. You may think like, whoa, but there's a lot of things done for me. Well, this is just the things around it, like I mentioned, like the Crashlytics, the in-app purchases, the audio settings, and all of that. Let's start from scratch, and let me show you how you can start setting up your game to do that. But let me at least continue going through some of the logic that makes up my game, so in particularly my game. So, for example, you have here like a set of pages or components that already give you the application itself. So you're gonna get like a main menu. That main menu page is already given to you, and this main menu is where you then define what those items are. For example, in my particular case, I added some animations using like a Rive animation file, and then I encapsulate the animation of the little ghost, like stuff like that. You can either do it yourself with code, or you can just like create like a Rive animation. I'm going to go into that in a minute or two so that you guys can see that. And then you have, for example, you can create like buttons so that you can provide like the play functionality and, for example, loading the leaderboards. You see here that I'm also using the Go router as the navigation capability. Some of you may have already seen this in previous sessions in this code camp, how to perform navigation. In this case, the framework is using Go router. So that is something that you will definitely tap into. You're going to leverage, again, like I mentioned, using the state management package called provider, and then you can just watch or read your services in a very comprehensive way, as you have seen in the past. So the provider package, remember, is kind of like a wrapper around the inherited widgets, and then you can just consume those services injected from the top. For example, in here, I'm pulling the palette. The palette is nothing more than just a collection of colors that you can use for your application. Settings controllers for controlling the settings, and game services controller controls like some aspects of your game that you can tap into. And I'm going to show you exactly how to use it in this application. So I created myself other widgets. For example, if I hit on the play button, you will see, for example, like some stuff like that. Let me launch it again. For example, so you can see it that I have it. This is not anything that is like it's not rehearsed. I'm actually even loading it right there in front of you. So let me make sure that I'm loading it for you. So I'm going to do Flutter run. This is just like any other package, any other Flutter application. I have a couple of devices connected, but I'm going to load it into my my Android phone that I have. So I'm going to do, sorry, I have to do the iPhone. So let me do the Android again. So again, it's both applicable for both iOS and Android. So there's no like web aspect for it, but you can add some components to it if you want to. In this particular case, I'm only supporting iOS and Android. So you will see how it immediately loads up, and then you get to play. So let me show you a couple of the aspects. For example, I created a folder called widgets, and then I added like my own widgets in it. For example, the ghost. The ghost itself is just a separate widget, right? Remember how you accomplish in Flutter widget composition, so that then you can create your widgets in a very comprehensive way so that they can build only within themselves. You create more reusable components that you can reuse in multiple places. For example, the ghost itself is just a widget. The discounter is a separate widget. The field of let's say the little circles where the ghosts come out of, that is a separate widget. You will see that in the code. Right now, I just created it as a 5 grid little field. The ghost rate, like some of those animations that you see on the ghost rate, those are separate widgets as well. So you see how I create very discrete small widgets that communicate with one another. We use I use the provider package to perform, some trigger some notifications between widgets so that they communicate with one another. Just the header itself, like up here, is a separate widget fed by a service called the score panel service. That's how I keep, let's say, count of the score, how many ghosts, and all of that is very simple. It's nothing more than just, a regular widget listening to a score panel service. And if you see, the services are very simple. They're just keeping track of a few variables, a few values. Keeping it very simple, but integrating it with the rest of the game. I also created widgets for like the time counter, like that little counter that appears at the beginning. That's also another widget. I can exit the game and start all over. The ghost, again, like the ghost counter, the little like the points that come out, that's also a separate widget because I wanted to do a separate animation to that. So you see, when you see the code, it is very simple, very small widgets, very compartmentalized, very well distributed and well organized so that it doesn't create confusion. It's not all within the same page and all of that. So that's pretty good. So now that I've just went over, let's say, a little bit of what that, now let's say if I start from scratch, where do you start building your own game if you want to use the Casual Games Toolkit? This is where you start from. I'm going to drop in the chat. I believe I will have that access. So I will copy here, and I'm going to drop it in the chat for everyone. This is the GitHub repo for the Casual Games Toolkit template. So I just dropped it in the chat. That is the link for that. And this gives you a starter game in Flutter with all the bells and whistles, like Philip says, because he was the initial creator of this. It is mostly for iOS and Android and includes all of those features. Now I'm going to show you how to use all of those features. And the same way that I started from scratch, I'm going to do it just now so you can see how to integrate those things in your own games. So let's start. The first thing, of course, that you want to do is clone the repo. So I'm going to do exactly that, but because I like you guys, I already did it and I already cloned it. So I already have it already available for me. So I'm going to go here in my folder, in my documents. I think I have it in let me see where I have it in here. And I think I called it, give me 1 second. So I think I have it right here available. I can just go, I'm going to open another window just so you guys can see it. So I'm going to open my folder. I already downloaded it here in some of my apps. So I have here the samples. So just the samples, when you get the whole package from the GitHub repo, you get a bunch of like sample projects from Flutter, but you only want the samples template. So there's a bunch of those, but you only want the samples template. So the samples template will look like this one. Let me show you again. So I moved that out of the way. Let me just make sure. So there it is. So it's in the samples, there's a game template. So under the game template, it's a bare bones project that you will get so that you can start from scratch. I'm going to open my project right where I am. It's the same folder that I just dropped in the chat. We're going to move this out of the way. And now I'm going to start as if I was completely building it from scratch. So let me just do that. I am going to, this is the page right here. So I'm going to,
quick question, Roman.
Yes, go ahead.
Can we follow with you? Like, can we do that?
If you
ourselves?
want, if you want, you can follow along. I'm going to try to go as slow as possible. There's a couple of things that are dependency for this particular session. For example, when we do let's say the leaderboards, there may be some dependencies in there, but I'm going to try to keep it, for example, to start you guys off with something, but there are some other things that may require some prior dependencies, but I'm going to let you guys know in advance. But yes, you can follow along if you want to. Thank you for that. For that point. So after I clone the repo and then I get to the game template, that is a project that is already given to you as part of the Casual Games Toolkit. There's a couple of things already pre-created for you, but I'm going to walk you through on how to enable those and how to bring them, to life. So the first thing is I clone the repo, like I showed you. I go to the game template, and of course, as you see, We haven't loaded any of the libraries. So the first thing that you would incline to do is Flutter pub get. So you want to get all the dependencies required for the casual games toolkit. The dependencies are here in the pub spec YAML. So the dependencies for this casual games toolkit template are audio players. That is what plays audio. Cupertino icons, Go router, that was already by default, but the Go router is for the navigation, login to perform some login, provider, because this is the state management, share preferences, because the game requires to store some local information before even pushing it to any server or anything. Firebase core, Firebase Crashlytics, so that you can then log errors or log any activities in your game. Then you have game services for what I mentioned, for achievements, leaderboards, and whatnot. And last but not least, you have Google Mobile Ads and in-app purchases. Those are the other packages that you need for the monetization and for adding in-app purchases. So let's now do Flutter pub get. So I'm going to hit Flutter pub get. I'm going to get all my dependencies in the application. What I love about this project is that they keep it up to date. If the dependencies are a little bit stale, I see like a couple of pushes into this repo where they try to keep it as fresh as possible. So once that you're there, I've already fulfilled the dependencies. Let's take it for a spin. Let's see what we get out of the box from the game template so that then you can start building your own casual game. So I'm going to hit Flutter run, and I'm going to load it in my emulator so that you guys can see it, and then you see how cool it is. So I'm gonna emulate it. I'm gonna try it in my physical device. So there it is. So you see, it's no gimmick. This is not rehearsed. I just got the template. I'm loading it in front of you guys. Then you will see how anyone would start from scratch building your game using the Casual Games Toolkit. So we're gonna start with the first part, which is the loading the initial part of the game, and then we see how it loads. And while that is still building, I'm gonna continue showing you, for example, like the folder structure, like I mentioned. So it's the same structure as I had in my original game. You see that I have like ads, audio, Crashlytics. The main menu is just the page for the main menu. You will see it right now, like all the other pages. So there it is. So the game loads. You get this. You even hear some music. That is the music that is by default. I can hit like the mute button right here, and that is already using the settings, because it's actually persisting that value in the settings, like as part of the share preferences. For example, if I just dismiss this application, I'm going to dismiss it completely, but I'm going to relaunch it again. If I click on the game template right here, if you launch it, if you see it now, it will launch with the mute already enabled. That means it's already persisting in the settings. I'm going to show you exactly how to do that. You saw that the music is not playing. That's all good. But now you see that you get like a Flutter game template, and then you can do some stuff in there. You don't get the leaderboards yet because it hasn't been enabled. But for example, you can play something in here. Like this is what you get out of default, out of the box. You have like a set of levels. That is this page here called level selection. There is a levels page. You can see it's pretty simple. It just shows you a simple screen. It's using, again, like I mentioned, is using the state management to pull like the player progress and see where they are. If you click on one level, let's say, and then you drag the slider, this is like the game pretty much. Like after you do that, it tries to do, it performs like some animations, and then you're good to go. And so you get like a little celebration. All of that is part of the Casual Games Toolkit. If you hit continue, you're all good, and then you completed that level. Now level 2 gets enabled. All of that, it gets tracked for you. You can just reuse all the logic that is there, but I'm going to show you how to continue doing those. So I'm going to hit back. We're back at the beginning. If I unmute this, you will hear the music coming along. Very, very natural. Any game would need music. We need like sound effects and whatnot. So you want to actually implement that in your own game. So how do you do that? Let me show you. We already got the template. Awesome. I hope you guys already cloned the template as well. Let's say if you're following along. Now let's see how you integrate other things into this game. So let's see what else do we have. So that was the game logic. Pretty simple, using the provider package. You could integrate, let's say, Riverpod to it if you want to, but the game itself is already using provider. So might as well continue using it and just tap into the capabilities already built for you. Let's try audio integration. So I want to try something simple. Like in my game, I said, I want to add my own sounds. How do I bring it without doing like too much extra heavy lifting? How do you do audio integration in the Casual Games Toolkit? It's very simple. You already have, like I showed you, you already have here in the dependencies, you have the audio players package from pub.dev. So the only thing that you need to do in order to integrate your own sounds into the Casual Games Toolkit, let me show you how to do it. So the first thing that you do is you have to locate where the sounds are. So the sounds already in this application are in the assets folder, music, and then you have some music in there. You have some MP3 files that loop in a sequence, and they just start playing one after the other. But these are the ones provided to you for that. You also have like sound effects, which are also MP3 files. All you can do is just replace those MP3 files, and then you should be good to go. The only thing that you also need to add is some enumerations to kind of like support how you perform, let's say, a sound. But at a minimum, let me show you how you can just bring immediately sound to your Casual Games Toolkit. So I'm gonna locate one file that I have for like some music. So let me find it in here. I have it in my desktop. I have like some game assets. Let me find it right here. So here you go. So I have like an MP3 file that is just like for my game. I wanted to have like a ghost type of sound. So I want to add that. I want to add that sound to my game. So I'm gonna grab that MP3 file that I have. Let's say you can locate some like royalty-free MP3 files that you want to add to your games, and all you have to do is just bring it here where it says like music. I'm gonna drag it over to the music folder. There it is. Scary Ghost, that MP3. Perfect. That's my file, right? Perfect. So now what you do is you locate now where you map the sounds, where the sounds are in this game, the Casual Games Toolkit. So if you go here to lib source audio, in here there's a file called songs.dart. So what this does is just loads the files that are there in the assets music folder, and then just kind of creates like a little bit of a list, just mapping to where their paths are. That's all it does. So what I'm gonna do here is very simple. So the only thing I'm gonna do, what this does, it just loads them from the assets folder and just plays them in a loop. Starts from the beginning, plays the second, then the third, and then starts all over again. So let's say in my case, I don't want any of these songs. I can even just remove them and just use one for my song. So my song is called, let me just go to the folder that says assets music, and mine is called Scary Ghost.mp3. So I'm gonna call it exactly that. I'm just gonna say, for example, Scary Ghost.mp3. I can just call this whatever, Scary Ghost. And the artist is, whatever. I can just do the same thing. And this is not required unless you want to like show it, give credit to whoever, is the author of this, of the song. But I'm not going to need it. I'm just going to add just bogus information in there. What I want is to load my MP3. I dragged the MP3. I just went to the lib source audio songs. I just added my song in there. I'm going to save and now reload the application. So I'm just going to Flutter runs. You see, I didn't put one line of code, no code whatsoever, and I'm already gonna get like audio integration with my own custom audio in it. So let's try that. It's rebuilding, is already capturing the new file that I added, and let's see what it sounds like. So I'm gonna enable the mute. I'm gonna enable the sound. Let's see what it comes up. So I think it's already muted. If I unmute it, there it is. So it's already integrated. I didn't have to do anything else. And what it's going to do is going to keep playing that sound over and over in a loop. Unless I mute it. There you go. Unless I mute it, then it's going to do that. But so far, that's what I wanted. I wanted just background sound for my game without changing a line of code. I just dragged one MP3 file, just change the files that it loads, and that's it. I don't need anything else. You can add maybe some background music, some more upbeat background. You could do that. You can just replace it by just doing this in here, and you're all done. That's it. Oh, some people are saying, some people are, they're not, no more scary. I promise. Great. Now you have some special effects. Remember that I showed you here, there is a folder called SFX. So SFX are for the sound effects. So these are the sound effects that are available to your application, for this application by default. The way that you do it, you can just change it by going right in the same folder, the audio folder, right under songs. There's a file called sounds.dart. And look how cool this is. All this is doing is just creating a mapping from an enumeration to a set of MP3 files. Whenever, if you send to this method right here, sound type to file name, you send it the enum, is gonna play one of these files randomly. So it's just gonna grab one or play the other and so on. So it's gonna do it randomly for you. So my suggestion to you, bring your old special effects, bring your old MP3s, create your own custom enums for your, let's say for your sounds. For example, there's a hush, button tap, congrats, erase, whatever sounds you do, you bring it in, create your enums, and then map your enumerations to the corresponding MP3 files. And then you should be good to go. You don't have to change anything else in the code. Only, the enumerations that you're naming it and how you invoke it. For example, let me show you how you invoke it. So the only thing, for example, like in this particular case, there is a method called start music. Start music immediately starts the music, and all it does, if I just follow the code, for example, if I find that method, actually, I'm going to show you exactly where it starts playing in the main.dart file. I'm going to show you like the main.dart file. Remember, like I mentioned, we're using the provider package. If you find here the audio controller, this is what it does. So the audio controller is using a proxy provider. So it's adding the audio controller as a dependency. And then once it loads based on the settings, that, okay, whether maybe it's playing or not, there is a method called attach settings. If I go to that method, all it's just checking is whether the settings has the muted enable and whatnot. It just hooks up some events and then just calls a method called, it just invokes a method called start music. And start music does nothing more than plays the first song in that playlist. Remember what that first song was? The first song was the one that I set up here, which is this one. So there it is. So that is the only thing that you need to do in that aspect. But let's say I want to create my own sounds. Remember, you bring your MP3 files. Let me just move these over here. So the only thing, remember, you bring your MP3 files, create your own mapping. Like you create like let's say I'm gonna have a case. For example, I'm gonna create like one called like one more enumeration called like punch, like a punch. Let's say you're doing like a punch or like a jump, something like that. You create your own enumerations, and then you make sure that then you create. Of course, it's asking for the the new cases that I added. For example, for example, I'm gonna do the jump. And I'm going to add my other one, which is a punch, for example, let's say in this particular case. But then you use your own MP3 files to map them. And then, for example, when I hit those ones, I'm going to copy one of these so that you guys can see it. So I'm going to grab like my own case. I'm going to say if I do jump or I do punch, is going to execute one of those effects. Very simple. So you just create a mapping between an enumeration and an MP3. And the way that you invoke it, just like I'm showing here in this slide, you, again, the way that you do with the provider, or let's say the river pod, for example, like when you're in, you're trying to pull a reference of the state management, the provided service that you want to pull out of your state management package. In this case, the audio controller. So you get a reference of the audio controller, you execute the method play SFX, and then you just give it the enumeration, and then you're all set. Let me show you how you do that. So let's do that in this button right here where it says play. Instead of playing, we're going to perform like a sound. So let's do that. So I'm going to go to my the main menu. I'm going to go to that screen. Here I am. And then remember that I added a punch and a jump, for example. All good. Let me find this play button, which is just right here. You see? And it's even all set for me to play like a button tap, right? So I don't want to go right now to the play page. I'm just going to comment that out. But instead of playing like the button tap, I'm going to say jump, for example. I want to play the sound of jump. So So I'm going to do that. I'm going to reload. I'm going to reload the application. I'm going to unmute and I'm going to hit play. So now if I hit play, that is the one that is mapped to the jump enumeration that I did. So all you need to do is just invoke this anywhere you're going to execute your code. Let's say you want to perform a special effect. You just, for example, the same way that you do in any provider, in any provided service, you get a reference of it. In this case, we're using watch, but you could have simply used read, for example. Remember between the watch and read if you want to rebuild or not. In this case, I could have just gotten a reference of the audio controller and then just play a sound. Simple as that. It would have worked the same way. So here I just do audio controller, play as effects, you add the enumeration and it plays your sound. Simple as that. Does anybody have any questions around sound, playing special effects, adding your own sounds and whatnot? Just wanted to make sure that anybody was, you saw how simple that was, how to integrate audio into your games without lifting too much of a couple of lines of code and just bringing in your own resources. I just wanted to see if anybody had a question about that before we proceed with the rest. Great. Damien, what did you say was the difference between the watch and read? So watch and read, remember, it's like the same way when you're watching, you're actually listening for the changes in your service, and then your widget rebuilds. Read is kind of like just a read-only instance of your provided service, but you don't rebuild based on, let's say, if there are any changes in the audio controller. For example, if I go to audio controller, if you see here, this particular one, for example, if this did extends a change notifier, remember, like if you use a change notifier to kind of listen to changes that happen in your provided service, if you use watch, it's going to rebuild every time there's a change in this service and you invoke notify listeners. But if you just do read, it's actually only going to give you a read-only version of the service, and you can invoke methods on it. So that's the difference between watch and read in the case when you pull a reference from your provided service. In this case, watch will always rebuild the widget. Great. Anybody has every time you do notify listener? Exactly correct, Damien. So every time you do notify listeners, it will just it's just continuously watching for changes being triggered or being broadcasted. Thank you very much for your comment. Let's proceed then if we don't have any further questions. So again, this is how you play simple effects. You already know how to play music in the background, so you can just bring your own MP3 resources, and then you can for free, and not for free, but with very minimal effort, you can bring sounds to your Flutter games. Awesome. So these are just the two things that I wanted to highlight on that. So let's proceed with other stuff. So let's do, let's say, fonts integration. Like I mentioned, fonts integration is very simple. I suggest using services, for example, like I like this website. I don't know if you guys have used it, like thefont.com. These are pretty cool when you want to use like your own fonts. These are royalty free. You can download your own fonts. Google Fonts, you definitely use Google Fonts as well. These ones, I like them because you can do like, you can bring fonts like, stuff for like comic, like for funny stuff, for games and whatnot. I brought my own font called Grow Bold. I think this is the one that I'm using in the game. I think it's called Grow Bold. Yeah, this is the one that I'm using in the game. So let's say I want like a fun, pretty cool game, a pretty cool font, because I want my game to be like more unique and doesn't just use every other fonts that everybody else is using, like the Google fonts. Yeah, like Spider-Man font, for example. But in this case, I'm going to use this Grow Bold font. So this font, the way that you do it, you download it, you grab the TTF version of that font. Let me show you how you import it into your project. You see here, I'm using already an existing font called, and let me show you exactly where the fonts are. Right here is in the permanent marker font. It's a TTF file, and then you can just bring it into the project. How you bring your own fonts? I don't want to use the same one. I don't want to use the Google fonts. I want something more fun, more unique. So let me bring that font. So let me show you. So you could just bring your TTF file. I have my own font here called growbold.ttf. So instead of just dropping it here, I'm going to create a special folder called fonts, just like that. I'm going to drag my TTF file into my fonts folder. There it is. And then how do you import it into the project? How do you bring a reference to it so the Flutter knows how to load it? So you start by going to the PubSpec YAML. Maybe some of you already know this. And here there is a section for the under Flutter assets, like for the fonts. So you can just grab this same thing. You can just copy it right here. And then you want to add like another, sorry, I don't need this same one. I only need like the family. So I'm going to make up like my own family. It's going to be called Grow Bold. And the fonts that I'm going to be using is a reference to the font that I just imported into my assets. So I think I called it assets, fonts, grow bold.ttf. So as simple as that. I'm going to import an additional custom font file. I'm going to kill the application. I'm going to reload it again, Flutter run. I'm still not done yet. I'm only going to run it so that it picks up the new file. You'll see that it will still look the same yet, but we haven't applied it. I'm going to show you exactly how to apply it globally so that you can see it everywhere. Right now, it's applicable just in this one, but you can even import many fonts. Not just one font. You can apply multiple fonts and bring it into your application. So let me show you how to do it. So right now, we just added the font, but you still won't see it. After you do that and you add it to the, let's say, to the PubSpec.yaml, and you go back here to your, you see the assets into the fonts, and then the file is there. Now you're ready to apply it as a theme, as part of the theme of this application. Where did you go about doing that? So you go to the lib, go to the main.dart. Right here in the main.dart, you can go all the way to the material app right here. And you see here, this is how you apply the theme to your application. You can apply it at the top level. That way it trickles down to other places in the application. So for example, here you apply the text theme. That means every like text widget that I use is going to inherit that. So it's going to inherit the type of font, unless I am overriding my text with another type of font. In this case, if I want to apply it globally, I can just say here, font family, and then I apply my newly added font family, which I called Grow Bold. I'm going to save it. Still not done yet. I'm going to reload it. And then you see how here where it says music by Mr. Smith already got changed to that new font, but this one didn't change at all. Why? It's because that is being overwritten manually by another font. So let me show you where that is. So if we go, this is the main menu screen. So if you go here, main menu, you go to the main menu, and here, if you see that button, the button that says, I'm sorry, not the button, the title that says Flutter game template, you see how I'm overriding the style and the font family. If I just remove the font family just from here, if I just remove it, save and reload just by hitting R, you will see how now that also picked up the style from the game. If I click other places, for example, if I click on settings, see here also it's still being applied, it's been overwritten, but you can apply it even from page to page. You can apply it to specific things and whatnot, but you see how you can bring in, just wanted to go over real quick, how you can apply the font globally, but you can override it in other places. That way you can have very unique experiences from screen to screen, which is pretty cool. So that is simple covering how to apply like your own fonts, how you download it, how you use like real like cool fonts in your games, and then you can apply that. So that's one thing. Awesome. So we already covered that fonts integration. Let's do, for example, like launch icons. You're noticing how my icon is still like the default. You see how when I go here, it says like game template is still like the default name and it's still the Flutter icon. I want to add my own icon. I want to add like something more unique. How do you do that? I think some of you already know how to do that, but let me show you how the games template, the casual games toolkit also helps you with that. So let me show you. So here, there is that icon that is representing the Flutter icon is right here. Is in the assets, images, and then if you go here, icon.png, this is the, let's say, the icon that you can use to load, let's say, like your own custom icon. But let's say I want to add my own one. I don't want this one. I can just grab one of my icons and overwrite that one. But let's say we want to use this one. Let's say I want to use this one. This is the icon of my application. How do you do it? How do you apply this so that it looks cool, like throughout the application, throughout all my, both Android and iOS, with very minimal overhead, very minimal changes. If, for example, let's say I want to load this into iOS, I will also have to, just with one single change, with one single command line execution, I want to apply it to both platforms. How do you do that? So here in the pubspec.yaml, already the team provided they already provided like this package right here called Flutter Launcher Icons, which is publicly available. It's very easy to use. Also here in the game template, they show you how to use it. For example, here in the icons right here, see, they just show you how to run it. So we're already adding the package already for you. All you need to do is just enable that section, point it to where the file is, and all you need to do is just run this piece of code. So I'm going to grab this command line execution. It's right here in the README file in the template. So I would encourage you, leave that same file, just overwrite it with your own. The package is already loaded for you, is ready to rock and roll. All we need to do is just go to the terminal. I'm going to grab like one more command line. Right at the root of the project, you could just do Flutter pub run, Flutter launcher icons main. So if I hit that, if I hit enter, you should be able to create, see, it already generated launcher icons. Supposedly, I'm going to trust this command line tool. So it already did that. All I need to do was just run that command. And now if I go, for example, to verify that it actually did it, I'm going to delete this whole application. I'm going to uninstall it. Sorry about that. So I'm going to uninstall it. Let's reload it again just to make sure that it actually did something. So I'm going to go back again. It's already killed. So I'm going to do just Flutter Flutter run. Let's see if it did it. So you see, I only ran one line, one command line tool, which is the Flutter, the Flutter launcher icons, which is already provided for me. And then I should be able to have that taken care of for me. All I needed to do in this case was just replace this icon.png, and then it should be taken care of for me. I could just come rename something icon, and then it should be there. So now let me mute this because I know a lot of people are getting annoyed. And there it is. The icon is already there. If I go, there it is. Awesome. I didn't have to do much. All I needed to do was just replace that icon.png for whatever I wanted. In this case, that icon is already set up for me. And all you needed to do was just run that command line and it's all set. You want to confirm it? Like truly? Yes. You can go to the app. If, for example, for the Android version, you can go to app, source, main, res, and inside of each one of these folders, you should be able to have like the launcher corresponding, the launcher icon corresponding to each one of the multiple resolutions that you're supporting for your application. And if you still are not trusty enough, yes, it is also available for iOS. So how do you check in iOS that it actually got taken care of? Go to the iOS folder, go to the runner workspace. You can launch the runner workspace and open that in Xcode. Let me launch it for you right now. So right here, if you go to the Xcode project, and if you go to runner assets, and you go to app icon, all the icons have already been replaced for you, all set, and you're ready to go. You don't have to do much. It's already taking care of that for you. Just one single line. All you needed to do was just replace that icon, and then you're good. That's it. So I like the fact that that's taken care of for me. I can go deeper, for example, in like launch screens and whatnot, but that might take a little bit longer. But at least I can point you to other resources on how you create like the launch screen, how you can make it better. But at least I wanted to show you how the project already gives you the hook so that you can customize your icon with just one single line of command of execution, replacing one image. You don't have to do anything. And now that customization is taken care of for you. So that's awesome. So that is the part of the launch icons. I see a question in the chat. Can you open the app in Android Studio and Xcode? Do it manually. Don't do that. Yes, thank you, Damien. Don't do it manually. Yes, it's much better to do it like that. Isn't it better to just replace that icon.png and just run one line and he's taking care of that for you? Don't do it manually. Yes, please listen to Damien. Don't do it manually. It's better to do it like that. Thank you for your comments. So let's continue now to a little bit of advanced topics. This is what I was mentioning, that you need to have now the dependency for this particular feature. You need to have a Google Play developer account, and you're ready, let's say, to publish your application to the Google Play Store, because the game services depends on you having a developer account. You also need to have ready for you to publish your application, and it's using the game services package, because you cannot just do this unless you have something published out there. But you can still create it without publishing yet, because you can test it. But this is depending on you having a developer account, and then I'm going to show you how to do it. It only costs $25, and then you have it forever. In the case of the iOS, if you want to create like leaderboards and whatnot, of course, you also need to have a developer account under the App Store, and that costs $100 per year. But in this particular case, let's just go with the game services, because it's much easier. And then I'm going to show you immediately how you can hook up leaderboards in your games without you having to stand up your own backend. You don't have to do complex logic and checking, my users and whatnot, authentication and all of that. All of that is going to be taken care of for you in this following steps. So again, this may be a little bit steppy, but I'm going to show you. It should be straightforward. But if you miss one step, you're going to have to kind of like start a little bit over again. But I'm going to show you how you can set up a leaderboard in your games using the game services package, and also, of course, having a developer account. So let me show you how you do that. I'm going to go over, for example, like even once after you configure, let's say the leaderboards, all you need to do is just use the game services controller, which is another provided service. And all you need to say is submit leaderboard. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to do complex logic. You don't have to do complex, crazy stuff all over the place. No, you just have to have a score. That's why I'm saying you bring your own logic. And then after you're ready, let's say to submit a score, you just instantiate a score, create an instance of score. You give it a level, a difficulty, and a duration. But if you don't want, you can customize the score to only just take a value, like a score, and then grab a reference of your games, of a game services controller using the provider. And then you just call submit leaderboard score, and you're all set. Let me show you how you do that. So I'm going to back out, but I'm going to show you how you do that. So how do you start? Where do you start from? I already said that the package is already set up. So right here, like you already get the game services. We're going to enable a few things later, but let's start from the Play Console, from the Google Play Console. So if I go to the Play Console, I'm going to go here. You need to have a developer account. So I'm going to sign out, and I'm going to show you. So I have a developer account. I have a couple of other apps in there, but I'm going to create an app from scratch. And then I'm going to show you how you would do it in a real life scenario. So I'm going to sign in again. I'm going to go into my, okay. So please remove this from the video. I'm just kidding now. Yeah, nobody's going to hack this. It's a, simple thing. Let's just see. I'm just going to log in. That's my developer account. Let me just go. I'm all good. Here it is. So this is my Google Play Console. This is the console where you manage all your applications. And then here is where you then, when you're ready then to start testing the leaderboards and whatnot, and you're going to create your application, you have to come here. Remember, in order to maintain this Google Play Console account, you need to pay $25. It's just a one-time thing. And this is where you create like your leaderboards and all of that. Let me show you how to do that. So I click where it says at the top here, top right, you hit create app. So I'm going to click create app. Let's say my application is going to be called my casual game, let's say. So you call it my casual game. The default language is going to be English. This is going to be a game. Is going to be free, let's say in my case. But for example, if you make it paid, then you have to go into it forks into another type of workflow, but let's keep it for free for now. I'm going to say, yes, I accept all the US rules, all the US laws and whatnot. And I'm going to just immediately say create app. So the first, let's say, profile of your application has been created. So if I even go back to all apps, I should be able to have this my casual game already there, but you're not complete yet. So you need to create like your application, the profile of the application, the basic profile. Now that you go inside, there's a couple of things that you need to add. So you see there are like tasks that you need to check off in order to make sure that then this application is completely valid. And then you have to upload your APK or your app bundle and whatnot. We're not going to go into that. We're immediately going to go into creating, establishing this as a game application and set up the leaderboard. So now that I am in the dashboard of my casual game that you can see right here, I am in the dashboard of my casual game. You can just go here on the left-hand side where it says setup. And then you can see, not in this here, I'm sorry, here where it says like setup, we're going to go later. But here you can go where it says play game services, setup and management. And right here, immediately you see where it says leaderboard. So I only created the basic profile of my application, but I immediately can start creating a leaderboard. So I'm going to click here where it says leaderboards. You see there are other things like achievements, events. Then you have to, after you create the leaderboards, you have to publish the leaderboard, not the application, but the leaderboard. That will allow you to not have your application fully created, and you can start testing the leaderboard. So let's start. So I'm going to click leaderboards. And then here you can drive competition in your game. I'm going to show you exactly how you set it up. So you click get started. So I'm going to click get started. And then here I'm going to say, does your game already use Google APIs? I'm going to say, no, I don't use Google APIs. You can do that. Why? So that it then creates a Google Cloud project that then you can hook it up to other things like Firebase Crashlytics and all of that. Don't go ahead and create the Firebase project before, create it from here. What will this do if I say, for example, yes, my game already uses Google APIs, you're going to have to then select an existing project. If you already have an existing project, good. Hook it up to your existing project, find the project and select it. But in my case, I'm going to be creating a brand new, let's say, I'm creating this game from scratch. So let me go and say, no, I am going to create a brand new one. So now in the Google Cloud, you're going to have a brand new project called My Casual Game. Is going to create it under the free tier of the Google Cloud, and you're able to manage your project from there. We're going to have to jump into the Google Cloud in a minute. But for now, let's say, no, I don't use Google APIs. Let me just put the name of my game, which already gets picked up. And then if I just hit create, what is it going to do? It's going to spin up an instance of a Google Cloud project. And then you can actually manage all those things in there. We're going to be creating an OAuth authentication screen, an OAuth consent screen. We're going to hook it up to Firebase Crashlytics and all of that. So again, I'm just going to hit create. I'm going to say, no, I don't use Google APIs. Let's create something. And I hit create. Takes a little bit because it's spinning up a new project in the Google Cloud. All good. You're not being charged at this point because it's under the free tier. So it creates that project for you. And there it is. So it already creates it. You see here, it already tells you, it already points you to the Google Cloud. You can go to the Google Cloud and there will already be a project under your credentials, this same email. For example, in my case, romanyjaquez@gmail.com. Now the Google Cloud created a project under those credentials and he created a project for you. So if you scroll down here, it tells you that in order for you to make your users a lot more secure, you need to provide an OAuth consent screen. An OAuth consent screen is the screen that appears before you can get authenticated and you can see the leaderboards, because you need to provide some credentials and it provides like some hooks so that you can allow only authenticated users to access those resources. It's not free for all. You're going to have to provide a consent. You're going to have to allow Google Cloud and the Google Play console to authenticate on your behalf using a Gmail account. Then it's going to use that account to create like a player profile. Those things are going to be created for you kind of like transparently once you set this up. So let's continue. So the way that it tells you here to create the OAuth screen, you click here where it says configure. And here it already tells you how to create it. Here it gives you the steps, but you're going to have to go outside of here. And you're going to have to go to the Google Cloud and set up the OAuth screen. I'm going to show you how to do that. So let's do that. The first step is says, in order to create that OAuth consent screen, you're going to have to go to the Google Cloud. So I'm going to click here. Step number 1, go to the Google Cloud. It opens up a separate tab. It launched me in the Google Cloud. it already created the project for me. It's called My Casual Game. I didn't do this. It did it for me. And then here, it gives you the steps on how you can set up that OAuth screen. Remember, that OAuth screen is the one that when you, let's say when you tap in your game, it's going to say like, hi, the My Casual Game wants your permission to read your credentials, to read your name, to to submit a score on your behalf and all of that. That's the auth screen. If you don't give it authorization, you're not going to be able to play the game. You can just play it offline and whatnot. You won't be able to submit your score. So let's go to the next step. The next step says, make the consent screen available for everyone. Meaning if you want it externally, meaning everybody, that is when you do it, when you're ready to do it for production. But if you only want to keep it within your organization, keep it internally to a certain number of users, you do internally. In my case, I'm going to say, I want to do it external because now any test user or anybody, until I publish it, is going to be able to access this application with a Google account. So you see, you can set up like test users and whatnot. Pretty cool. I'm going to hit external and click create. After this, you have to fill out other things in here. So I'm going to say that my casual game is the name of my app. I'm going to use my email as a support email. I'm going to use my logo as the logo. Let's find the same logo. So I'm going to go to that folder right there. So I'm going to go to browse. I'm going to find that specific, let me find that specific logo right there. So I can go to samples, game template, assets, images, and then the icon. So this icon is going to be my app logo, for example. App domain, whenever you're ready, let's say you already have a web page or a simple page, like a launching page for your application, you could do that. I'm going to use my Roman just because that app, like my website, my portfolio as the home page, for example. So I'm going to use that at the home page. I'm going to use that at the privacy, the terms of service, and all of that. It's going to need a domain for the consent screen. So I'm going to add like a valid domain. So it has to be pre-registered. So I'm going to be using also this as my valid domain, for example. But it'd be cool like if you have like already like a terms of service for your application, a privacy policy, a homepage. Make it more professional. You could do that. I'm just going to do bogus stuff just so that you can see how you do that. And of course, they need to contact somebody. So you need to add the developer contact information, which is going to be my same email. So I'm going to say @gmail.com. Perfect. So I'm setting up the OAuth screen. Remember, I'm going to hit save and continue. I'm going to click that. Now we're going to go to the next step, which is very key. Otherwise, you won't be able to authenticate or give authorization of your application to talk to the Google Play services, the game services, and submit stuff on your behalf. So you need something called scopes. Scopes are nothing more than permissions that you're requesting your users to authorize, with your app to kind of tap into those services for related to the game. So here in the instructions give you, or in the step number 3, they say provide the application name, blah, blah, blah. Add the scope. So you need 3 scopes, one called games, game slides, and drive app data. So I'm going to go back to the Google Cloud. I'm going to click here where it says add or remove scopes. But you see, those provide like those permissions that you request your users, like, oh, allow this app to access, the games, the game slide, the drive app data, blah, 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 all of that. So I'm going to click here, add or remove scopes, and I'm going to find those scopes. I one called games. There it is. There's another one called games light. Here it is. And the third one is called drive app data. So if I go to drive app data, here it is. Good. I have my 3 scopes. I'm going to click update. Let me see, make sure that perfect. I'm going to just click update. There it is. So that should be able to add my scopes. Let me make sure again. Let me just make sure that, okay, so I do have that. Got it. Let me repeat it again. So I have the games light and I'll do the drive. I just wanted to make sure that I did get those. Perfect. And then all I need to, sorry about that. Perfect. And I'm just going to hit update. Perfect. Okay. Now I just continue. I don't need any other type of scopes. I'm going to hit save and continue. I can add test users before I even publish the application. I can add test users. For example, like only test users that have a valid Gmail account and it has a limit of 100. You can just add them here, and then they will be able to test your application. Whenever then you can roll it out to test users, you can add them here, and then they will receive a link to your application, a very private, and then they can download it, test it for you, give you feedback and whatnot. Let's say you already added those test users. Let's proceed. Hit save and continue.
I just wanted to step in. That scope thing you were filling out didn't actually fill out anything. It was a filter box.
Oh, it didn't? It didn't? Okay.
So I didn't know if you wanted to fill that out to make your thing work. So
say what again? I'm sorry.
I didn't know if you need to fill it out to make your app work. I didn't want you to miss that bit. That's all.
For some reason, I think my camera is cutting off part of the screen. That's why I was not looking. That's why I was like. I just wanted to make sure that at least that got updated and make sure that at least, but we'll test it now when I hook it up. Then otherwise I can come back here and make sure that it sticks. But let me finish this part and then we'll get back. We can just test that again. So I'm going to hit save and continue. So the alt screen is here. See, like the scopes for some reason are not showing, but let me try it again. For some reason, like if
you just fill out one in that filter box at the top there.
Yeah. Let me do games. It's that it's been blocked here for me. There he is. Yeah. I need to do that. Yeah, it's just that my camera is blocking my.
No problem.
Got it. Let me do the game slide. Thank you. And
you have to do one at a time.
I have to do one at a oh, okay. So it still doesn't do it. Okay. So for some reason,
if you delete the first one,
I do that, and then if I find it's already checked. This one is checked. So if I do games light, here it is. Okay, and
I
then
had the same problem before. You have to press the little X button on the chip that you just added.
Okay, I have two. Now I do drive.app data. Now I can say it's just my camera was blocking me, but thank you for catching that.
No.
So I'm saying like update, I should be able to see them. Okay, perfect. There it is. Thank you, Simon, for that. So now I should be able to hit save and continue. Now, see, now I'm like, wait, where are the scopes? Okay, so when I hit save and continue, now are the scopes. Perfect. Thank you. So now that you have the scopes, now we should be able to see that. Otherwise, then they wouldn't have come up. So now I can click on back to dashboard. I should be able to see that. It's all good. I have my auth consent screen. Then that was that step. So now I say publish to the consent screen and then return to the play console. Perfect. So now that we're back over here, we're all good. So now if you see that, if then, for example, I can publish the application or whatever, but right now is in testing, right? All good. Another thing that I'm going to show you, we're going to get back to this point, but I'm going to leave it up to this point. I just wanted to at least say, confirm the configuration. So when we hit that, we should be able to see, for example, okay, now see, it says create all of the screen. So that is complete. Now we have to create credentials. So that is then here you need to add like credentials. For example, like if you don't have, you can do like game server credentials, or you can add like Android credentials. I'm going to do, for example, the way that I did it before, I've added like Android credentials. So I can come over here. Oh, sorry. So if I do, for example, like the create credentials, and then you can say add credential. Here, then I say Android credentials for my casual game. I can say enable anti-piracy. And then, okay, now this is the part that I need to go back and create like a auth client to authorize the credentials. For that, I have to go back to the Google Cloud and do it. So let me show you how to do that. So you come back over here, you come back to the Google Cloud, go to the credentials, and here then you can create like an OAuth2 client ID. So you can, or it will create like an OAuth2 credential. So as to match the credentials that are required in the Play services. So I click here where it says create credentials. I'm going to say OAuth client ID. What is the type of application? I'm going to say is an Android application. I can leave all of these defaults in here. That's fine. But in your case, you're going to have to provide the name of your client and all of that. But in my case, I'm going to find even the same package name that is being used in this application for the Android version. So I'm going to go here to the app, source, main, Android manifest. And of course, I know this is not the legit one, but I'm going to copy it anyway. So you can just copy that. If you say com.example game template, let's say that is my package. So I'm going to put it there. And then last but not least, you actually need a SHA-1 certificate fingerprint. How do you generate that? In my case, because I have a Mac, the way that you do it, let me show you. I can just run my key tool command line. So to generate, to actually show me the list of keys that I have set up already. So I can go to my terminal. And yeah, I have it right here. And then let me just zoom in for you so you guys can see it. And in the Mac, for example, this is where like those keys are located for debug, let's say. So in this case, you do like key tool minus list minus v key store, and then you provide it where the key store is, and then you can just provide the password that is already the default for me in this particular case. Then when I hit that, they're gonna get like output for you. And then you just grab the SHA-1 certificate fingerprint. So you copy this, you come over, you paste it right here. And then once you're there, it says that it takes like about 5 minutes to a few hours for the settings to take effect. But I felt that it's actually, pretty fast and pretty, like it does it pretty cool. So I'm just gonna hit create. It says the other package is already in use. It's because I already had another one. That's okay. So I can just, for example, I can generate another one, or I can make sure that the one that I was using on another one in here is not used. But I know that is because I was already using it. Or I can generate another one. So I can go back over, for example, and say, so for example, if I hit, okay, say it's because that's already in use, that's totally fine. So I can just generate another one. Let me come up with let me bring this up. I can just bring it over. And then I can grab, let me see if I can grab this other SHA-1 certificate. Okay, now that's the other one. So let me grab another one. I can just do like the generate, let me do it right here. So yes, even though, for example, like if I come back over, I have to come back here. Once I generate it, let's say, I have to come back here and then this becomes enabled already for that, for my auth client. And then I can just select it right away. So let me see if I can generate a new one real quick. I hope I don't mess up my, my new key. So I'm going to say generate key store again. For my.
Sorry, just going to jump in here, Roman. Sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
As I said, you can also change your package name.
I can change the package name. I can try that. Let me try that, which is much quicker, because this is like something I can do comic sample, and then I'll do my casual game. Let me try that. And then I'll use the key that I had. There we go. And then if I hit create, yeah, even that. And then there it is. Perfect. Thank you. There you go. Because I've already been using that a lot. So there it is for this particular session and other session that I created. So perfect. This is good. So I just do that. Now that I do this and I have like the auth client ID, I can just come back over, and then it should already, be enabled. I can just even refresh this. And because it's already got picked up, now we select it. You see now you have your client ID, your fingerprint, and all of that. Of course, this is because it applies now to the package of this application. Then after that, I save my changes. I should be good. Then now I'm ready to add other things to the application. Like it won't allow me to completely publish until I do other things. Let me show you what I refer to. If I go back now to leaderboard, saying like, okay, you should be set or not, or you should already be set. If I click on the create leaderboard now, ready to create the leaderboard, let's say I'm going to call it, my casual game leaders, for example. The format is going to be a number. I'm going to use no decimals for this because it's just going to be like an integer or whatever, but it could go into the thousands. If I don't do like a couple of these things, it's not going to work. So it's going to say, oh, you're going to have to come back over and do, check a few things and whatnot. So let me grab like one of the same images that I was using. So let me go grab that same one so you guys can see it. I'm using exactly the same one. I think it should be, it's actually even asking me that it has to be a 512 by 512. Otherwise, then it won't work. So let me just grab exactly the same one. I'm going to go to my assets and let me grab that icon and drop it in here. I hope that's a 512. Okay, there it is. So it's a 512 by 512. Let's say that I want my leaderboards to have the largest at the top. I'm going to keep the tamper protection on. Let's not keep limits, and the list order, let's just keep it. Let's keep this as the defaults. Let me save it as a draft. That's all good. Now, if let's say I'm good, let's say, oh yeah, I created the leaderboard. The leaderboard is the name, what it's going to take, what type of values it's going to take. It's going to need like an image. And if I go to publishing, let's say I'm ready to publish not the game, but the leaderboard itself. Now I can just say, okay, you see, you need to actually do this. Otherwise, then your leaderboard is not going to be able, you're not going to be able to publish your leaderboard. So let's take care of some of these like real quick. I'm just going to go over some of these real quick. So you need a description for your game. So let's say my casual game that is pretty awesome. And I built it for the, Flutter London, let's say code camp, something like that. Let's say, and now I have to, of course, select the category. Let's say it's going to be a casual game. I'm going to say, no, I don't want save games, but I need a game icon. I'm going to use the same icon, of course. I'm going to drag it over. It has to be the same dimensions, the 512 by 512. I don't think the feature graphic is required, but I'm going to try. If not, I already have one, but let's try that. See, I just go down the line. I'll hit save changes. I have to go back to my leaderboards and see what other things are required for the publishing. So if I'm ready to publish it, see, it has one more. See, the feature graphic, it is required. So you need to make sure that you have then a nice graphic that you can import into your project. I'm going to grab one that has just like those required dimensions. So let me go to my, I think I just have it ready in here. Let me go to the game assets. I'm going to bring like this feature graphic, which I created for the game that I was building. So I'm just going to drop that. This is for the one that I created for that one. You see, so you needed that. Now, if you hit save change, you see even those things, whether they're not like code related or anything, those are things that you still need to take care of before you even start like tapping into this. But once you do all that configuration, then you should be good to go. And these are like a one-time configuration anyway. So if I go back to publishing, and now I'm ready to publish. Now you see that this button lights up, the one that says publish. Now you're ready to publish your leaderboard. So now I'm ready to publish. I'll hit publish. Let's not the application itself. It's just the game project. Like it will enable the game services features available for this game. So I'm going to hit publish game project. There it is. Now it says game published. Perfect. Now if I go to leaderboards, you will see this here, and you will see that the status says published. You need to grab this ID, which is very key for the game services. You need to have that ID in there. Otherwise, it won't work. So now let's go back to Flutter. Finally, let's go back here. I'm going to close all of this. Now, how do you hook it up to your application? Whoops. I'm just going to, I think I saved something in there, but that's okay. Let me just close it all. I don't need to do that. Now, let me see how you can integrate this leaderboard in the application. So there, you need to do a couple of steps in here. Step number one, you need to go to the main.dart, and you have to find the game services, which is available up here. You scroll up, there's the, you have like the Firebase Crashlytics in here. You're going to have the ads controller in here, and you have the game services. So the game services are governed and are kind of like wrapped up inside the game services controller. So you just uncomment this piece. And after you uncomment this, there are a couple of lines up here that are to be uncommented as well. Let me see, we have the Firebase core. No, that's still for the Crashlytics. I think I jumped the gun there. All you need to do is just import these guys. So I'm going to import the dart.io so that it imports that. And then initializes the game services controller, which initializes things for you. So if you go here to the initialize, it's going to attempt to sign in for the first time. So it's going to do it from behind the scenes, but it's going to need some credentials. That's then when it is going to pop up the OAuth screen and is going to authenticate for you. Step number one, you have to enable that. So that's the first part. Step number two, in the same instructions in here, if you go to the game services, to the game services right here, let me show you, for example, like the game services integration, where they show you where you need to replace the Android leaderboard right here. If you go to the game services section, you need to do two things. So you're going to copy an XML file, and you're going to replace everywhere that there is this thing that says some ID. You're going to have to copy the leaderboard ID from the game services and bring it over. So let's go back to the leaderboards. If you click on your leaderboards from the Google Play services, you have to grab this leaderboard ID. That is the ID right there. The way that they set it up here in the project is that you have to replace it in do like a find and replace it in a couple of places. But I optimized it and I created, like in my game, I created like a common place to put those so I don't have to repeat it. But just for the sake of this tutorial, all you need to do is say, for example, say Android leaderboard, and you find the 2 instances of that Android leaderboard just so that you can, so we can see it work. And then you just find and replace this guy right here. So you can just find that some ID from Google Play, and then you replace it with your Android leaderboard ID. So it's just 2 instances. You can do a find and replace for that and just replace it, but you need just to replace those 2. It would be better, like it would have been cool, like they had like a common place, but you have to put it like in 2 places, but that's okay. So I grabbed that leaderboard ID, I brought it over, all good. That is step number 2, replace the IDs. And if you even keep following along, this is the part that you need to replace now. You have to create an XML called, actually, there's an already existing XML called games IDs. And all you have to do is just replace the XML that the Play services provides you. You come here to the leaderboard. Actually, let me go back to the leaderboards. And right here, there is a button right on top of the leaderboards that says Get Resources. So if you click here, Get Resources, you're going to grab this chunk of XML. So I'm going to copy that chunk of XML. And I'm going to go to my project right here. And then you go to the Android project. You go to the main, resources, values. There's an XML already called games IDs with already some bogus stuff in there. So all you have to do is just do like a find every, like just highlight everything and replace it with your own values. So you're going to replace it with your own values right here. So I'm going to save this. Go ahead.
I was going to, sorry to cut in. I was going to jump in.
No problem.
Yeah. So see, it says the package name com.example.
Yeah, I need to come over here and replace that my new package.
There's actually a quick way of doing this. If you just go into your build.gradle.
Yeah, to the build.gradle, we can do it through the build.gradle as well.
And then
so
if you go anywhere else. Yeah. So for example, if anyone else wants to know, when you're doing Android, in here there's a section which says application ID.
Mm-hmm.
Where is it?
There we go. And then here it will be my new, exactly. So it will be the com.example.mycasual. That's that what I called it? Yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I know. My casual game. There we go. And then that way it gets propagated. Exactly.
Yeah. And that automatically gets set. It doesn't matter if the XML files have a different one in, it'll get overwritten by.
It will get overwritten by this one. Exactly. Great point. And there's even other things that you would need to do, like in the build.gradle. But at this point, we're going to keep it exactly. Very good point, Simon. So after
of course, if you're already running it, you have to stop it and start it.
You have to stop it completely. You have to kill it exactly so that it picks up the new values. Very good point. So after I do that, I copy the value. See, I'm even following exactly the same thing. See, remember, you have to replace the values in here. All good. So now we have to kill the application, completely remove it. Let me, sorry, let me do it again. So let me uninstall it. I'll hit OK. Let's rebuild and kill it and all of that. So does anybody have any questions? Again, Simon is there also to even answer any other questions that you may have. He can interject. But again, like you see, it's very, this is a very involved process. But you see, it's not just about like your game logic. It's a conglomerate of things that you have to do in order to make this work. So I'm going to hit Flutter run one more time. But I just wanted to say if anybody had any questions regarding what we've done so far. Great. So let's see now when it builds. Now you will see, you didn't see the, am I already running? My camera is kind of blocking me. But anyway, you will see now there's like it's going to pop up like the authenticate, the auth screen is going to now enable the leaderboards, and then you can even submit your score in there. So let's see how it does it. Of course, it's because that the audio, I need to, let me see, I need to enable. Okay, I think I need to, I uncomment something else that I didn't need to do. So let me do that. So I have the game services, which one is it asking me? It's asking me for the audio controller. So it's gonna, okay, let me kill this. The audio controller should have already been enabled. Sorry about that. So let me kill this. So the audio controller should have already been enabled. Let me find it. So the audio controller is right here. We should have been already initialized. So let me try that. So let me kill this. I'm sorry. Save. I'll do it again. So I'm gonna, perfect. All I did was just uncomment the game services. So let me make sure that we did that. Game services. So we only make sure that the services controller is enabled. We are initializing it right there. Perfect. I did not add any other services or whatnot. So let's just run it again. Flutter run. Let's try that. How's everybody doing? Just wanted to make sure. Awesome. Perfect. So let's try one more time. So you see, like, there's a lot of steps involved. You see, even like we jumped into the Google Cloud and we did some configuration in there, and that was again required to make this work actually. So let's try one more time. So it's still blowing up for us, but at least you see that is actually loading it's trying to load the games service in there. So let's try to.
Did you leave audio controller extending change provider or whatever?
I think that's what I did. I meant not to keep that change in there. So I went into the audio service. Let me see. I think I had it right here. The audio controller. Yeah, I wanted to undo that. That's why I saved it. Thank you for that catch. I'm gonna reload it one more time. There we go. So the sound is good, but now you see that the leaderboard is enabled, which we didn't have before. So now if I click on the leaderboard, now you see that the leaderboard shows and it says my casual game leaders. There's no scores right now. That's all good. So let's try again. So if I do that, and now I'm going to try, like, let's say to play. So if I hit play, it's gonna okay. Of course, remember I also disabled it. You see, that's the great thing about the live coding is that you need to make sure keep inventory of what you do in the past. That way it actually you don't run into issues in the future. So perfect. Let me just reload one more time. Now we're gonna go to the play page. So I'm gonna hit play one more time, and then you can just go to the level number 1. What this does is just simple. It's just going to capture something that you do, and it's going to perform. Let me show you exactly how it, where it sends it and what it does. So if you look for, like I was showing here in the game services, if you search for submit leaderboard score, you see exactly where that gets sent. So if you find submit leaderboard score, which is right here, this is where the score is going to get sent. So right here in the play session screen, which is this one, is going to say that if the player won, is going to go through some other logic, and he's just going to submit the leaderboard score just right here. Very simple. So it's going to hit that, and underneath the scenes is going to then tap into the game services and going to perform the call to that. So let's try that. So I'm going to scroll over. I stopped. It's going to give you the confetti. It's going to send the score. It says that my score was 1,000. Now, if I hit continue, I'm back here. I can continue sending scores. But now let's verify that we actually got the score. So if I hit back, and then now I can see, for example, the leaderboard. If I load it, there it is. We see the score, and then that's it. You saw how steppy it was. Even Simon had to step in and help us out because it's so intricate. If you miss one thing, if you're not looking right, you may miss something. I even said it at the beginning, so I'm glad that we definitely have the support of each other. So you see now leaderboards are all set. Now after you have, for example, like the leaderboards already set, now that you can capture the users' scores and whatnot, you can do it on your own. You can again, like I said, you can inject like the services just like in any other type of provider. You can use, for example, the same way that I'm pulling it right here. You can use the game services. Let me find it right here. So if we do, for example, like game services controller right here. So we're finding a reference of the game services controller, and then we use it to submit any achievements, to submit the score. In your particular case, you can still tap into this. Tap into the game services controller, then you call the right here, submit leaderboard score, and then you should be good to go. Perfect. That was the games services. In the iOS aspect, you have to do the same thing. You have to create an application. It's a little bit more intricate. You need to actually have the application published, I think, so that you can actually be able to even test the leaderboards. That's the only thing, the only caveat there. But I like this because you're able to test it even with testers and even before you publish it. So I like that part. So you see how the configuration was more complex than even the implementation. So that's great.
The nice thing about doing this though quickly is that it is only once, right? Like you only have to configure the Play Store once, the label once. So yes, it's difficult. Yes, you have to go through all the guides and make sure it's all correct and test it all out. But once it's done, it's working. It's not like you go in there and change it all the time. You can change all the code in your app as much as you want. That all still is still configured. So yeah.
Exactly.
So
Great.
Roman, I have one question that if anybody want to develop the game on the web, so what is the steps for that? Like
the games, this one, the games template, according to them, they're only supporting iOS and Android.
Oh, okay.
Because there are some other aspects that do not work for the web. But of course, again, do not let that stop you in creating your own casual games. There are some other aspects that you can incorporate for the web. For example, like the Crashlytics, you can add it there. But for example, the games, like at least this part, you have to is only supported for iOS and Android. But you don't let that stop you. You can make it, for example, even for example, here in the code, you can even see how they even say it literally. If it's not for the web, then you can do it. Look, if you say, if not web, but it's available for iOS and Android, then you can enable these things. So you can leverage some of these things, but only certain things will be initialized and enabled for you when you support certain platforms, but not for web, unfortunately.
Okay.
Perfect. And it does actually support Mac desktop as well.
And Mac desktop, exactly. That it does support.
Yeah.
Now, how are we doing in time so I can go on the Crashlytics? So we can show some of the Crashlytics.
I think we've got some time. So we're currently broadcasting as 1 hour 35 minutes. So we've still got a good half hour left.
Good. So let me try to.
We can extend it for some Q&A if there's some Q&A at the end if people want to stick around. If that's up to you as well, obviously.
I can wrap up at least the Crashlytics part, and then we can take some questions, more questions, and then we can maybe have some discussions about this.
Cool.
Let's do that. Any other questions? I see. He says, what are the scopes difference between games and GameSlide? Again, those are other scopes that they're suggest to provide, but what they do is provide, give you access to the, they give kind of like the games, the play services, access to your credentials so that then you can submit scores on your behalf and whatnot. You need to have them. It's not like one or the other. It's a collection. You have to add them all so that you have access to that. It's not like you have to add one or the other. So it's also recommended to add those scopes. If you need other scopes, you can take a look at some of the other stuff, but at a minimum, you need to have those three. Go ahead.
Just something I've run into as well. If you've already got a client ID created, you can also add the scopes to that.
You could do that.
Things. So you don't have
that is
new
true.
client IDs. You only ever have one per app, really.
Correct. That's very true. We also see publish and test Flutter production. You could do, for example, in the case of Android, like I was showing you, you could, right now I'm setting it up for testing. You can add like a bunch of testers in there. In the case of iOS, it's a little bit more intricate, setting up like the leaderboards in there. You have to set up like test flight to distribute it to your users and whatnot. I kind of like the Android because it's a little bit friendlier for that. Because even without publishing, you can distribute it to your users. In the iOS, you have to submit it, even if it's for testing. But it has to be submitted. Then you can hook up the leaderboards to it. It's a little bit weird, but it's still doable. Any other questions? So Sumit said it works like work. Oh, is it anything around some of the questions that we're doing? And you say iOS is weird. Yes, that is true. Great. So let's proceed now with the other part, which is you actually want to make sure that your games, you want to know how people are using it. You want to log any crashes. You want to provide a great experience to your users. So you want to set up integration of Crashlytics into your application. So why not use it? So let's do that. So you can set up your Crashlytics the packages are already created, already added, I'm sorry, by default, the Firebase core and the Firebase Crashlytics. All you need to do is override, all you have to do is overwrite some of these, the Firebase options, but that is also even done automatically for you. I'm going to show you how to do that so that you can set that up. You create like your applications using the Flutterfire package. By using the Flutterfire package, it automates a lot of the configuration for you, sets up your applications and whatnot. So it's pretty cool. So let me show you. So here, in the Google Cloud, remember the Firebase sits on top of the Google Cloud. So we already have a project in the Google Cloud. Why not leverage this same project so that we can use Firebase with it? So let's do that. So I'm keeping this tab open. I can go, the way that I've done it in the past is I go to firebase.google.com so that I can at least tie the two projects together. So check this out. So if I go to the console, to the Firebase console, you can have a bunch of other projects, but I can click on add a project. So instead of creating a brand new project, I say create a project, but link it to an existing Google Cloud project. Remember the one that we called it My Casual Game. So I click here and then I find the one that is already in the Google Cloud available for me. So it's right here. I call it My Casual Game. So I'm pointing it to the same one that the Google Cloud created for me when it set up the play services and the leaderboards and all of that. So I'm going to hit continue. I'm not going to do, I'm going to, there's some other stuff is already hooked up to it. You don't have to set it up. I hit continue. I don't need to enable analytics at this point. I don't want analytics. I'm going to set up Crashlytics, which is a different, but I can keep it here. That's okay, but I can enable it later. That's fine. I'm going to just disable it. And I'm just going to hit add. And it's going to create the Firebase project for that. So you see, now you have a Firebase project linked to the Google Cloud project. Now all we need to do is create the apps that are required so that then we can talk from our Firebase Flutter SDKs, both for Android and iOS, so that we can talk to Firebase, send Crashlytic information to that and all of that. So perfect. So we set it up. Now I have one project called My Casual Game. You can leave it right where it is. Now let's go back to here to the project. So the project is already created. Now let me open up another terminal and we're going to set up Crashlytics. Like I mentioned, Crashlytics is already installed as part of your dependencies. So it's right here, Firebase Core and Firebase Crashlytics. But what we need to do is set it up so that in here, in this Firebase options, we get the credentials required so that we can talk to our Firebase project, send Crashlytic information, and all of that. Let's try that. So I'm going to close it. Now what I'm going to do is, as a dependency, I can even send you here. It's actually even here. All the steps are here in the samples page. So if you want to set up Crashlytics, I have the Crashlytics right here, right? If you want to set up Crashlytics, they give you the steps on how to do it. One of the first things that you need to do is you need to have the Firebase tools installed on your machine by using, npm install -g Firebase tools, because you need the Firebase CLI. In my case, I already have the CLI installed, but the way that you do it is you say npm install. You can say npm install -g Firebase-tools. This is what installs the Firebase CLI. I believe I already have it installed, but I'm just going to run it real quick. Of course, I need to be, in sudo mode. So I'll do sudo npm install -g, Firebase tools. Let's try. So in your case, you would have done that. In my case, I need elevated privileges for that. You should be able to install it, and then we should be good. After installing the Firebase CLI, then it tells you now how to run the Flutterfire plugin, how to configure it, how to connect it now to the your Firebase project, your existing Firebase project, and then you can start sending Crashlytics, crash information to your project. So after that, the next step that you need to do is, like they mentioned right here, you need to install the Flutterfire. I already have the Flutterfire installed, but the way that you start configuring is by doing this. So you say Flutterfire configure. I'm going to say Flutterfire configure. I'm going to hit that. Actually, I need to run one command first because I don't have it in my command line. Let me show you. So what you need to do is this. So I'm going to drop this in the chat if anybody's interested. So the way to do that is after you do the install Firebase tools, you have to activate the Flutter Fire CLI. So it's right here. So you can just copy that, come back in here. Then you say Dart pub global activate Flutter Fire CLI. So you activate it. It activates it, all good. And because again, like I said, I don't have it in my path, you grab this this little command right here and just try it again with that command. So you're going to just map it to where in your home directory where those files get cached. So I'm going to hit that. Now I should be good to hit the next step, which is Flutter Fire configure. So let's do that. So now I'm going to configure Flutter Fire in this project. So I'm going to hit Flutter Fire configure. Perfect. So let's try that. Now it says, immediately it's telling you, okay, so select a Firebase project to configure your Flutter application. You either can create a new project, but I don't recommend it. I say use the existing one because you want to leverage the same project. You don't want to create a separate one, although you could. So this is my existing project. You can use the arrow keys to navigate to it. So you find the My Casual Game right there, the one that says My Casual Game. Then after you arrow key into it, you'll navigate to it, you hit enter. I am only supporting, it's asking you now which platforms you want your configuration to support. So I only want to do Android and iOS. So I'm going to hit space on the other ones on Mac OS and web. So I'm just only going to support these two platforms for now. I hit enter. Now it's going to bring all that information from Firebase because it's registering. The one is registering the Android app in the Firebase project. Now it's registering the iOS app in the Firebase project. After it registers all that information, it says that it found a Firebase options.dart. Remember, for us, it was empty. Now we want to override it with that configuration from Firebase. I'll say yes, proceed. And also, you say that it will be updated to apply Firebase configuration. Yes, you can do that as well. You want to update those files and you should be good. So after this, after we've configured it, now I can go, I'm going to close all of this. Let me go to that file, the one that provides the configuration for us. I'm going to go right here. And actually, let me just show you what got generated for us. So what got generated for us was this Google services.json, which gives you like all that configuration for your Google services for the Android portion. For iOS, you actually get this Firebase app ID file. You also get this Google service info plist, and you also get for the lib in the lib folder, you get this Firebase options, which then provides you with this information and it just adds it for you. So you see, you didn't have to add this manually. This got added by that Flutter Fire configuration execution. So now I have the options for connecting my Android application to the Firebase project, the iOS application to the Firebase project. So let's try now after it gets configured. So that is the next step. After you configure Firebase, now let's hook it up. So now, next thing that you do is, of course, now all that is pretty much hooked up for you. Now I'm going to go and find the Crashlytics section in here. Remember, I was trying to do it earlier. In the main.dart, there's this chunk of code already set up for you. So all you need to do is uncomment it. You uncomment that piece, and you uncomment these two, I think, these packages right here. I already have this Dart.io because it was for the other one. So I need to enable these two, the Firebase core and Firebase options.dart, which is the one that contains all your configuration. So you see, all you had to do is uncomment those. That's it. You're all set. You don't have to do anything else. It's already configured. Configure Firebase, run the Flutter Fire, uncomment those things. Now let's kill the application one more time and let's run it and see what we can get in the Firebase project and see how it's doing, for example, like Crashlytics and whatnot. How do you report Crashlytics into your application? The simplest way that you can send like Crashlytics, let me run the application first, and then that way you will see it. So you see how simple it was. You have to create it. The simple stuff is in the code. The more complex stuff is in the configuration. That is the more labor intensive type of things that you need to do. So I'm going to kill this. I think I already had it running. Let me make sure to kill that, close this. Let me run it one more time. So I say Flutter run. While that is running, I'm going to show you the multiple ways that you can report things to Crashlytics, as far as like sending information to Crashlytics so that then it captures data, like usage data, crashes in your application, exceptions in your application. It's pretty cool. So let me show you that, and then I'm gonna show you how it gets done. So I think in the slides I'm showing how to do it. For example, one way that you can report an error from your application so that you can see it in Crashlytics is just by throwing exceptions. Like any exception that you throw in your application will actually be captured by Crashlytics. But let's say you want to just log stuff throughout your application, usage, execution flows. You want to maybe track sections of your application being used. You can log information in this fashion, and then that gets captured in Firebase Crashlytics. So right here, if you go now to, I'm gonna go back to my casual game here in the Firebase project, and I'm gonna go to the Crashlytics section, which is here in the release and monitor, and then here you click Crashlytics. So here in Crashlytics, right now is saying that it's already detected like a couple of applications. There's the Android and there's the iOS. Let's start with the Android, and let's just let's fake a crash in the application. So let's do that. How do you fake a crash? Just like I mentioned, I'm gonna go to my main menu, and instead of going to the next page and the play, like reroute this application to the play page, I'm gonna literally say throw new state error, for example. I'm gonna say new state error, and then I'm gonna say my app just crashed, for example, just like this. Let's just throw something. I'm gonna save that, reload, and let's see what it does. So I'm gonna reload the application, all good. Now I'm gonna hit play, but now I'm noticing that it's breaking in the application. The application is breaking, is throwing in, it's throwing an exception. So if I hit play, okay, so now you see here in the output, right here, you can see it in the terminal. You can see the following state error was thrown. Now you see here, bad state, my app just crashed. It started crashing. And now you're like, wow. If someone reports like, oh, I cannot go to the next page because I clicked it. Look what happened. Immediately after doing that, Crashlytics immediately lit up. And then now it started showing like some stuff. So now here you can see like any issues displaying in your application. For example, let me go back to, for example, it's not on the iOS one. For example, if you go back here to the Android, which is the one that we're tracking, here you immediately see the crash that just happened. If I click here where it says crash, now you will see the information on the stack trace. You can definitely see the whole stack trace of your application. You see exactly the line of code that triggered that change. You can also see the logs. So look at the logs right here. So it was on the on-tap recognizer, right where I hit that button. Then you can see, for example, other information in here. You can see data on the phone that actually triggered that exception. I'm running it on a Samsung Galaxy 10. You can see there. And then here, for example, you can see other things that is actually being captured, which is pretty cool. So you can see other stuff right there, that is being captured by your application. So it's pretty comprehensive. It shows you the information. And look at this, the Flutter error exception. It just says bad state, my app just crashed. So even while you're using the application normally, you can log information. You can come over here, for example, anywhere in the application, wherever you have, for example, like this instance of the log. Let me show you how that gets captured. For example, here, you can just grab an instance of the logger, and wherever you are, you can just provide like the context of where you're providing that log. In this case, I am creating an instance of logger, and then I'm saying that it's in the main.dart, and anywhere in your application, you can just come over and you can just say, where were we throwing the application? Here we were throwing, for example, an exception. I can just come over here and say log. I can say log, for example, I can say like logger, for example, right? You can bring an instance of the logger. You can import it and you can say, for example, like log. This is not the right way to do it, but for example, you can just say logger, grab an instance of it, and then you say what the context is. In this case, for example, main menu. And then right from here, you say log.info. For example, you can say log.info. You can give it a callback, and then you just say whatever you're logging in here. You can just say, hitting play on the main menu, something like this. I'm going to save that, and I'm going to try it one more time. So instead of throwing the error, I'm going to see if I can log this. So let me rebuild the application. I'm going to rebuild it. We have it right here. Now, instead of throwing an exception, I'm just going to log something. And then here you see now, instead of throwing an exception, it just logged something where it says hitting play on the main menu. I can come back here to my, to the casual game, to the game, to the game template. You can see, for example, other logs that come into play. You can see other things being generated from the main page. In this case, in the main menu, I was doing there. If you go to logs, I should be able to see the new one. You can see them like come through. You can capture them in there. You see like other metadata coming through, that you can see while you're using the application. So it's pretty cool. So you see how how to set up the, let's say, the Crashlytics in there, which is pretty cool. I just wanted to give you one last thing, which is the bonus. How you can implement animations using Rive. That's exactly what I was using in some of the animations in my application in here to simplify how you display animations in here. So some of the animations that you see in the application loading, for example, like this particular one, you can use like Rive as opposed to doing like a bunch of coding just for one simple animation. You can just grab, like, for example, like Rive, the Rive editor that I'm showing you right here, and you can create like very simple yet pretty cool animations with very little bit of effort. Like you see right here, for example, like I'm showing like the animation on that. I can do it in Flutter. I did it also in Flutter, but then I realized, like, why don't I keep something like a Lottie file or like an animation like this, like a Rive animation, which is very optimized, very low memory footprint. And you can just, with one single file, you have all those animations encapsulated. So I definitely recommend using something like Rive, which is very easy to use. I didn't know how to use Rive until I started playing with this. And you can do really cool stuff with Rive and bring your applications and make your games more interactive with a very, very little effort. You don't have to create that much code, and you can make it more engaging. So with that, again, I would have had a lot more time to go through all the other stuff, but you see, it's not super like, okay, it's pretty cool. The game's casual toolkit. Everybody think, yes, I'm just going to use that and it builds my game. No, it doesn't build your game. You do some upfront configuration, you bring your logic, and then you integrate it with those aspects. And that's then what makes your game whole. You bring more common features to your games, like achievements, leaderboards, Crashlytics, Rive, authentication, and all of that. Those are the things that you want to bring to your game that make it complete. So I hope that you take some of these learnings and apply it to your own games. You also take advantage of all the learnings that you've had, with Renuka, with Sumit, with Simon, with all the other GDEs that came before me, and you can apply all that knowledge, and you can build really cool games with the Casual Games Toolkit. So, questions? If anybody has, I think I'm all done. I just wanted to put in there like some of my contacts. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, you guys can, scan the QR code. You can follow me also on YouTube. I am actually finishing one game and I'm about to publish it as well. So you can come in here and support me on that. You can follow me on Twitter. But again, I just wanted to say thank you so much, guys, for providing this platform for us. Again, Flutter ambassadors and, enthusiasts to come in here and share our expertise with everybody. I just wanted to thank you, Simon. Thank you, Renuka. Thank you, Sumit, for the invitation, and everybody for letting me share my knowledge here. So thank you. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Roman, for doing that. Really, we appreciate it more than what you're saying.
Thank you so much.
But I thought, just a comment, I thought the bullet train doesn't exist in America. You were so fast, so good. You could talk. I was like, take a breather.
Yeah, but I couldn't have done it without you guys.
Netflix.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much.
So
I
Roman,
still-
I have some question. Like,
Okay.
if anybody wants to use the Flame engine or Unity package or anything, they can still use the casual game kit, right?
Definitely, you can combine all of those things. You can bring, see, I was using Rive, but you can bring the Flame engine, but the casual games toolkit is not for building your game. So that's why you use something like Rive. That's why you use something like Flame, another engine. But the casual games toolkit is to bring those additional features that make your game more, again, engaging, because you want to engage with your users. You want to monetize. The casual games toolkit doesn't build your game, doesn't bring game logic. It just gives you some scaffold pieces, some already pre-created things, some and even some sample code, but you should still bring your game into the casual games toolkit. So yes, bring your game, use the Flame, use Rive, use any other frameworks, and then you add casual games toolkit because it complements your game. It's like I showed you, I've already built games. I don't need the casual game toolkits, but if I bring it, it makes my games more whole, more engaging. Even it gives them an edge over some other games as well.
Yeah.
Someone asked me how I drew those ghosts. Yeah, I drew them myself. You can even draw them. I use Figma. So you can use like Figma and you can bring like your images in. You can even do it in Rive as well. You can draw in there. But I like to draw like in Figma. I bring them in, or like Adobe XD. Then you import your SVG assets and then you animate them. What I like about Rive is that it's very, very low memory footprint, very small file. Like that animation was like 3K. And even with the animation embedded. So it's pretty cool. So for complex animations, I definitely suggest you using something like that, because I did the same thing in code. It was like 100 lines of code. I'm like, I could have just done one Rive file. But yeah, pretty cool. Great. Simon says, YouTube question. Well, it says, I just want to know about the new rendering that will be on the Flutter. Oh, I mean, Simon, if you want to take that one, but I don't want to spoil anything on the impeller, but you want to talk about that.
What was it? I didn't even, I just forwarded in on the question.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought you,
No,
okay.
no,
Yeah,
really,
so
I just want to know what a new rendering that will be on Flutter, the last announcement, how for the current, it won't affect this at all. So that the whole point of them building Impeller, which I think you're talking about, the new rendering engine, is to replace the current one with zero impact, right? They don't want it to be any difference. The point here is it will make things better across all multiple platforms, easier for them to manage and maintain the graphics engine across multiple platforms.
Correct.
And also hopefully improve the performance across multiple platforms. So yeah, there's not going to be some massive like, oh wow, this it makes a big difference. Like the idea is it shouldn't make any difference.
Completely, and it should be transparent for all users. Like already know that application, the Wanderers app, is already using Impeller. Like they enabled it for it, so it's supposed to be a very transparent transition. But there are still some aspects of Skia that will still be present that are enabling Impeller. Like so, it's pretty good. It's not like it's gonna be like, oh yeah, completely killing Skia and we're going for Impeller. It's for improving the performance. You know, some everybody's gonna mention like the iOS jank. Stuff like that is gonna improve, but it's gonna also improve on all platforms, like Simon mentioned. So it's pretty good.
I just sort of taking it back to what you just tried. It just occurred to me something else that came off. That you know the great thing about this the casual gaming kit here is that it gives you that starting point, right? Like for when you're coming, like whenever you come to an application, especially with Flutter, which is so flexible, you get that kind of issue of, well, how do I approach this? Right? How do I even begin to do this? Right? And there's an example there. You can just get going straight away. You can take you obviously as Roman said, it's not like it's like a here's your game and you plug things together. It's not a point and click thing. It's like here's your starting point. You can go use Flame, you can go use whatever, you can use a canvas to do your game rendering, whatever, and it will give you that plugin with like the leaderboards and the achievements and kind of get the whole thing going, especially when it comes to like, you know, as to like handling audio and everything else. These are all separate things, and to have it all there in one place just I'm not joking, that's like a huge amount of the work just done up front for you, and you can go in and just put the game logic in there, make what you want to do for a game.
Yes, correct. You couldn't have put it better, Simon. That's exactly how it is. It complements your game. It simplifies a lot of the things for you. It gives you a starting point, and then it does a lot of heavy lifting. You saw all the configuration. All we had to do is like uncomment a few things here and there. Of course, you need to go outside and do some configuration, but those are a one-time thing. that then you can leverage even in other games and that experience. But then you focus on your game experience, while the casual games toolkit just brings all those elements that make your game much better. Not that it would have been better without them, but it makes it much better and more engaging for users. Like, leaderboards, achievements, in-app purchases, ads, stuff that you can make add to your games to monetize. And again, honor all the efforts that you put on your games. Great.
I like this next guy name.
Dash Zelda clone. You can.
Dash Zelda clone. I'm like,
you can do that.
You make it. I'll play that. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. So again, someone asked about like a Rife. A Rife is pretty good. Again, it's free, but it gives you like some limited access, like 3 projects. But even for simple stuff like that, is pretty good because it simplifies a lot of the animations, and Flutter supports it with the Rife package. It's similar to the Lottie files that you can build with other providers, but it's cool because it encapsulates animation, encapsulates a state machine that you can do to perform animations in a very programmatic way and saving tons of code. But still, don't leave, again, Flutter animations over this, because there are some other things that are good for Rife, but are things that are not good for that. But yes, it's pretty cool, and it makes it really easy and make your games very engaging. Awesome. But yes, I would looking forward to that Dash Zelda clone.
Any more questions? Get them into the chats now. Otherwise, we'll see where we go. Did you have it? Did you cover? You said I know you were running fast. There was a lot to cover. Is there anything that you didn't get to cover that you want to briefly talk about at all?
I wanted to mention again a little bit on the, for example, the only other things, the settings. But the settings, again, it's just regular shared preferences. So settings in the shared preferences are already by default. So here, right here, if you even go to the some of the settings available in here, they're just using share preferences underneath it. That's what I wanted to mention, that you can just tap into this thing. I've already used it. Some other folks have already seen me in some episodes of the Flutter Live coding that I've been doing using share preferences. This, for example, like in this case, look how simple they're storing, for example, like the mute flag, like how to store mute. All you need to do is just create your own flags and just add them here, and you can access them from your end. So that's one of the things that you can tap also into the Casual Games Toolkit. You can use the share preferences for storing those, small flags, small configuration that gets persisted across sessions. So that is one thing that I wanted to mention that I didn't have time. Ads and in-app purchase. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say, just briefly, quickly on those settings.
Go ahead.
Go back to that for a second.
Yeah, I can show you here.
So this is great. This is great. A great example of doing this. But also, you start realizing that as soon as you start getting more and more settings, these start getting really, really long.
Getting really big. Exactly.
Another nice way of dealing with this is that you can still do preferences.setString, and that string can be a string of JSON.
Thank you. I've done that. I thought I was the only one doing that. I'm setting a JSON that contains all of that in there. I'm glad that I'm doing it like that too.
Yeah. You can then do things like versioning and all sorts of other things, and really kind of make it more flexible than just here's some keys and values. So,
exactly, because these are very piecemealed individual values. I'm like, but wait, you can actually store a whole JSON string as a single value, and you can even have like a decent amount of keys in there. I'm glad that I'm actually doing it the same way as well.
It's great when you get like a few things like this, like when you got some flags and we got some simple things like the person's name, what their user ID is,
the music or whatever. Yeah,
this is perfect. But as soon as you start getting more and more complicated, you start outgrowing this kind of thing, and that's when you want to go to JSON. So
correct. That's a very good point. And the only thing before I address another question is about the apps and ads and in-app purchases. You need to have a Google account. You need to create like those, configure it separately. It's a little bit steppy. I encourage you guys, if you truly want to do monetization in your apps, explore some of the links that are already here in the README about like the in-app purchases and whatnot, and you can take a look at those. Those are even a little bit more involved than the one that we just did, and you saw how many steps that was. So I would definitely encourage you to look at those. The ones that I created now are the most common things that people do: leaderboards, Crashlytics, and whatnot. But if you're really into building your game more robust and creating monetization for yourself, you should definitely pursue those other topics, the in-app purchases and ads, which are pretty good, but you still need to do some configuration in there. So let me.
There was a request from the chat, from the YouTube chats, asking if we could have the link to the slides. So
yes, let me share the slides. I can even share them right now. Look, I can even do them right here. So I'll do share it for everybody. I'll make everybody with the link. I'll copy the link, and you will have everything for. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna drop it right here in the chat for everybody to. Got it.
thanks.
Perfect. Someone
okay,
says,
actually, Roman, Sumit, and Simon, you should all continue. I need to go now. I have to do the dinner with the kids. So
no problem.
sorry
Thank
for
you,
that,
everybody.
but
Thank you,
thank you
Renuka.
so much, Roman, for having like a here.
No, thank you, guys.
Here
This was
and
amazing. Thank you so
thank
much.
you. Thank you.
This was great.
And Simon, you can extend the session.
I'll leave you going and carry on. Okay, no problem.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
So Roman, sorry, what were you saying there about the ads and in-app purchases?
Yes, I'm already sharing that. I already said that again. I wanted to address one of the questions in the chat. Someone says, I'm curious how you approach game design as a developer. How do you decide on what games to make and how they should work? Do you follow any specific methodology? For example, in my case, to be honest with you, I'm not a game developer. It's just that I like to build like casual games. These are things that you can have like a, quick instant gratification, for building like stuff in Flutter and things that make people happy and that bring people together. And again, you can execute like in no time. Flutter is an amazing framework for building those type of experiences, right? You can expand your portfolio very quickly by building just like a bunch of cool games. How do you approach it? It's all about you. It's how you can make, for example, in the case of casual games, for example, like I don't use like multiple sprites or multi-level games. I try to find things that are simple to do, that engage the user, that keep the user kind of hooked. And then you build like those games with with that mentality, things that are simple, that keep user engaged, but not like multi-level, things that keep like user you guys.
Did someone raise their hand? I don't know.
Oh, someone. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I'm not sure if they've got a question or not.
Was that a question? Do you mind repeating it?
Maybe not.
Okay. But anyway, yes, my approach is again not being like a game developer by trade. Is stuff that again that I find amusing, funny, cool, a quick win, something really fun, something that again Flutter actually right now has allowed me to build anything that I've come up with. It's pretty cool. Very fast to execute and iterate. So that's why you see, for example, like these two games, like I just created like a game about a little frog jumping through a pond, and I created the connect the dots, which allows me to draw on the screen. So you see, those are the type of applications that are suitable for casual games in Flutter. But if you're talking about like 3D, multi-level type of, Fortnite type of games, Flutter is not good for that. You could have maybe integrate some aspects of like augmented reality and whatnot, but games in Flutter are more optimized when you tap into the true capabilities of Flutter, which is fast rendering, fast rebuilding, interactive games, and then you can use that as your blueprint to build like other games and whatnot.
No, it's not to say you can't use other things. Like there is actually a Unity.
Yes, of course.
There's a Unity package. There's also Flutter GL. There's a bunch of options. But again, the problem is adding all these things, adding all these dependencies. So I'm just talking to the audience here. Adding all these dependencies adds complications, adds complexity.
Yes, that's complexity.
So,
exactly.
so by just using the plain Flutter, this all the stuff that Roman's mentioned here, like widgets and painters and the 2D surfaces, faster rendering, the quick rebuilds, that's going to achieve you so much in with very little effort in comparison.
Exactly. As opposed to depending on another plugin, for example, like a Unity plugin that I've seen out there, and other things that bring like those elements. But again, like I said, fast rendering, painting on the screen, faster rebuilds, tapping into the widget tree and do things like that in a very comprehensive fashion. Widgets rebuilding, updating, painting. That's what's cool. So then, if now you have a frame of reference, now you say, okay, now I know the realm of apps that I can build and games that I can build in Flutter. Yeah, you have a huge breadth of things that you can tap into. Yes.
on the sort of course that we've been doing here, we've been basically talking about apps mainly and app development. But I do want to speak out to for everyone. Apps are not very dissimilar from games.
Yes, thank you.
And especially in the kind of reactive UI approach that Flutter takes. This answers Charis's, I think Charis's. Charis's question. Do you follow any specific how do you decide what games to make and how they should work? So obviously decide what games to make and how they should work, that's obviously specific. But I think the approach that most people fall away from is like a game, like how do I even approach that, right? I think the key here is you have to think about the game being completely virtual. There's almost like there's no pictures to be displayed on the screen. There's no like this is what got me sort of going into it, and what got me through this, even doing like 3D games and everything else. Like you're everything that is in your world, that's in your game, is represented by some data model, some object, and it has its properties and values. What you're then doing with the Flutter UI is you're now representing that state on the UI. So you can say, oh, these are the positions of these creatures. This is where they are in this landscape. Like, you know, whatever it might be, 2D, you know, screen, whatever. But the point here is people get hooked up on how it looks and how it animates and all the rest of it, when the game logic and the behavior and how it all interacts is just as important. And they can treat them almost as two separate things, and that the logic should work completely and testable completely without any UI for the game at all. And you know, it's very much how we approach app development with Flutter, but you have to kind of step back from that, from the game of just, you know, it looks pretty and it does stuff, because the gameplay is a lot more important a lot of the time.
That is true. And another thing to add to that, like a lot of people say, oh for example, like in these games that I've built, they're no different from a regular like business application where you have to implement state management, let's say using Provider or Riverpod, using network connectivity to, like tap into a RESTful API. Again, the building of the widgets and structuring your application. Those are all similar things. Like you can take learnings from this to implement, regular line of business applications. Again, minus the pretty pictures, like you say. But for example, in my case, I build casual games because, for example, I'm not depending on the game loop, for example. Like usually you need to keep constantly rendering things in there and keeping things alive. I've used regular, normal, run-of-the-mill state management, changing things here and there, triggering widgets, communicating with one another. And you don't even have to do kind of like in normal games. You have to engage in the event loop, and you have to make sure that everything is up to date. You can just use regular strategies that you use in other applications to implement simple games and see. Like I found that not as an excuse not to build games. I've used those learnings and I've applied it to games, and there it is. Great. But yes, Teresa is completely right. I do things that stuff that is fun. And you can also put yourself like in the mind of the gamer, but I'm not like a heavy gamer either. It's just I like things that are fun. They look cool. I love doing Flutter. I just find any excuse to do something in Flutter. Yes.
So I'll mention as well that, if you're trying to work on, like, if you want to try building a game with the Casual Gaming Toolkit, go find yourself a little sort of classic arcade game.
Yes,
that you played before. Like it could be, like Tetris. It could be, Space Invaders, whatever it might be, Pac-Man, whatever.
Yeah, something.
Start trying to implement that yourself. You know how the game should be. You haven't got to think about the gameplay or the behavior or the logic, because there it is. There's plenty of examples out there, and you can play the original game yourself. That's your go-to solution. Then you can just make that yourself. And that's kind of another way to kind of fast track you, because you've had to skip the whole design phase.
Hangman. Yes, you can do Hangman. I've seen Hangman in Flutter, but you can do it again. That's another thing. Like people say, oh yeah, I'm not going to build that game because it's already been built. Is that your excuse not to build a Flutter application? You could build it and throw your own flavor. Don't tell me how many times that whack-a-mole game has been built. I threw my own spin at it, and I have another application.
Making the whack-a-mole game back in the Flash days myself.
Yes,
and
exactly.
On a web page on GeoCities.
Oh my God, that's crazy. That's awesome. There you go. Minesweeper, yes, Minesweeper is good too. Yeah.
Minesweeper, that's another good one. Yeah, so there's a couple of questions that came in from the YouTube. If I want to, so I'm just going to read off these questions. And
Go ahead, sure.
If I want to compare with Flutter, could Flutter deliver the same results as C++ games developers did already? And then the second part of this is I'm talking about real world games, the next era of games, because just love Flutter and I don't want to waste work on another boring technology like C++. I think he's asking, can he build like the next like AAA title in Flutter? I mean, this is the point we were just making earlier. Yeah,
We made the point. Yeah, we made the point. Yeah.
You can use Flutter Geo, you can use Unity, you can do all this stuff. So, but that's not Flutter, right? And then the key here is that Dart Flutter is not designed for doing that thing. And if you do want to do that kind of thing, you probably want to interface with some external library or system anyway. So, yeah. But
and you're there that you already know, and you've already explained it in multiple sessions, how you can even tap into low-level capabilities from your Flutter applications. Like, let's say, talk to a C++ library using Dart FFI or something like that. If you want to keep your UI performant, but also leave, let's say, the heavy lifting to a third-party library or something like that, you can still do it through Dart FFI, native port, sending messages via isolate. There's multiple ways that you can do it. But again, Flutter is good for UI rendering, building, and all of that. Try not to, take it to the extreme by trying to fit everything into Flutter. Like Flutter is good for one.
I'm gonna like be a complete ass here and say, yeah, I ported a game, and they did a talk on that recently at Flutter Vikings. And that's like a fully featured like game that you can play with sounds and full screen rendering and everything else, and that's done completely in Dart and Flutter. So it is possible to do this.
Yes.
And I'm going to post a link to it because like this might interest people. But yeah, the source code's out there and everything else. So
correct. So I'll be dropping also. Where should I drop? Should I drop the repo of the game of the Wacka Ghost? Can I drop it in the community, in the Flutter community? Should I do it in the dev?
And then that will everyone will get access to that.
Let me drop it right there. I'll drop the link in there. I'll make it public. Everybody. I'll also drop the slides in there for folks to grab it as well if they did.
So much, Roman. Thank you very much for joining us. Honestly, it's been
all set. Thank you guys. Have a great day. We'll stay in touch.
Information on the screen there.
Oh, I have here the information. You guys can do,
So are you going to be streaming tonight? Did I hear you mention earlier?
Not tonight, because I still have to finish a couple of things, but I'm going to be doing that next week. I do it every Wednesday. This is the only one because not only because I was preparing for this, I have also a couple of things to clean up before doing the two final sessions. So stay tuned for those, guys.
Thank you. Thank you very much for spending your time with us.
Thank you. Take care, guys. Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So I won't be doing any live coding tonight because it's it's getting pretty late already. We've had a really good session. I think that was really good. So what I'll do, I think we'll do the usual. We finish this off now, post it, and we'll have another session. Are we going to have another session Saturday? When's the next one?
No, I think we're gonna take a break. So I'm gonna send a link out to the guys about assignments and code, and then I think it's a session with you soon about some additional good coding practices and some assignment checks and so yeah.
Okay.
So we're gonna there was one question quickly.
Live stream here. Thank you very much for everyone for joining us on YouTube, and we'll hopefully be posting more content soon. Thanks very much for joining us.